The American legal code is less justice and more hallucination. We found 48 real laws that forbid basic logic, like carrying wire cutters or owning an encyclopedia. These aren't myths. They are active threats to your freedom. Prepare to question the sanity of every person who has ever held a public office in this country. 1. In Nebraska, skirting prohibition laws required a bizarre culinary sidecar. To legally sell beer, bar owners were mandated to keep a kettle of soup simmering on the premises at all times, which technically classified the tavern as a restaurant. It didn't matter if the soup was edible or if it had been boiling since the Hoover administration, it just had to be there. You have to laugh at the image of a bartender sliding you a cold pint while pretending to stir a pot of mystery broth just to keep the police happy. It is the most delicious legal loophole in history. 2. Pennsylvania has a law so specific it paints a vivid picture. It is illegal to sleep on top of a refrigerator outdoors. This is the kind of rule that only exists because someone, somewhere, actually did it. You can almost see the guy cracking a beer, climbing onto a rusty Kenmore in his front yard for a nap, and ruining it for everyone else. It is a perfect example of reactionary legislation. One man's comfortable afternoon snooze fest became the state's weirdest prohibited act. 3. If you are walking around Austin, Texas, you better check your pockets, because carrying a pair of wire cutters is technically a crime. This ordinance is a dusty echo from the Old West days, when cattle rustlers used them to snip barbed wire fences and steal entire herds. Today, it just means your local electrician is technically a felon in waiting. It is a bizarre reminder that local laws often forget to evolve past the 19th century, treating modern citizens with tools like they are cowboys looking to heist a cow. 4. If you find yourself in Chicago and the restaurant catches fire, put down the fork immediately. It is explicitly illegal to continue eating in an establishment that is currently aflame. This ordinance exists because, apparently, Chicago deep dish is good enough to die for. Someone, at some point, sat amidst the smoke and crumbling ceiling, refusing to leave until they finished their meal, forcing the city to legislate basic survival instincts. It's the only law in the world that effectively bans you from loving pizza more than your own life. 5. During Prohibition, Texas didn't just ban alcohol, they effectively banned knowledge. The state outlawed the possession of the entire Encyclopedia Britannica because the volumes contained a detailed formula for homebrewing beer. Rather than just ripping out the offending page, the state decided the logical move was to ban a foundational text of human history and science. It is a masterclass in government overreach. They were so terrified of you making bathtub gin that they preferred you to remain completely uneducated rather than risk a single drop of unauthorized booze. 6. Utah's penal code gets incredibly dramatic with a ban on causing a catastrophe. That is the actual legal term. The problem is, it doesn't specify if that means a nuclear meltdown, a forest fire, or just dropping a really expensive wedding cake. It is a beautifully vague catch-all that essentially makes being a walking disaster a prosecutable offense. If you are naturally clumsy, you might want to tread lightly in Utah, because oops is no longer just an apology. It's potentially a felony charge waiting to happen. 7. Missouri has a law on the books that feels like it was written after a very specific, very bad Tuesday. It is illegal to drive with an uncaged bear in your car. The terrifying implication, of course, is that a caged bear riding shotgun is perfectly acceptable passenger material. You really have to wonder who is letting bears roam free in the back seat, fiddling with the radio and licking the windows, to make this specific statute necessary. So, if you are planning a road trip with a grizzly, just remember, safety first. Buckle up that apex predator. 8. Idaho apparently believes that true romance should cause a hernia. An old statute forbids giving a sweetheart a box of candy weighing less than 50 pounds. 50. That isn't a romantic gesture. That is a literal construction project. While this is likely a humorous exaggeration that stuck around in local lore, it sets a precedent that if you aren't delivering chocolate with a forklift, you simply don't love her enough. In the gem state, affection is measured in back pain and the risk of immediate diabetes. 9. Quitman, Georgia, took a playground joke and transformed it into a legal mandate. It is illegal for a chicken to cross the road. The law was originally meant to force farmers to control their wandering livestock, but the result is unintentional comedy gold. It finally answers the world's oldest riddle with a boring bureaucratic reality. Why did the chicken cross the road? It didn't because it didn't want to do hard time in the county coop for violating municipal poultry statutes. 10. Wisconsin takes its dairy so seriously that serving margarine in a restaurant instead of butter is illegal unless the customer specifically begs for it. This is a relic of the Margarine Wars, where the powerful dairy lobby fought to protect butter's reputation from cheap imitations. At one point, they even forced margarine to be dyed unappetizing pink to discourage people. In America's dairy land, passing off vegetable oil as glorious cow fat isn't just a culinary faux pas. It is treated like an act of treason against the state. 11. In Minnesota, the state government decided that common sense wasn't enough, so they codified it. It is explicitly illegal to tease a skunk. This isn't really an animal rights law, it is a public safety measure. The legislators realized that if you annoy a skunk, you aren't just punishing yourself. You are creating a biological weapon that affects the entire zip code. It is one of the few laws in history that exists solely because some idiot poked a skunk and ruined the air quality for everyone else. 12. Vermont's legal code seems to have a personal vendetta against the laws of physics. It is technically prohibited to whistle underwater. Not only is this physically impossible for anyone who isn't a dolphin, but you have to wonder how they plan to enforce it. Are there scuba police listening for a muffled tune? It feels less like a law and more like a dare disguised as a statute. If you can actually manage to whistle while submerged, you probably deserve a medal rather than a fine. 13. If you want to buy a new ride in Michigan, do not show up on a Sunday. It is strictly illegal to sell automobiles on the Sabbath. While you can buy almost anything else, the auto lobby and old blue laws have conspired to keep dealership doors locked tight. It is a bizarre remnant of the past that forces all the high-pressure sales tactics into a 6-day window, treating the purchase of a Ford F-150 like a sin that simply cannot be committed on the Lord's Day. 14. Tennessee has officially turned your generosity into a crime scene. Since 2011, sharing your Netflix password technically falls under theft of services, putting you in the same legal basket as utility thieves. While the law was originally aimed at hackers selling logins in bulk, the wording is so broad that letting your mom watch The Crown on your dime technically makes you a criminal mastermind. It is wild to think that, legally speaking, there is a razor-thin line in Tennessee between a Grand Theft Auto suspect and a guy just trying to help his buddy catch up on cartoons. 15. In Urbana, Illinois, city officials had to draw a hard line. It is illegal to give a lit cigar to a domesticated pet. The inclusion of the word lit is the kicker here. It implies that handing your poodle an unlit Cuban cigar might be a legal gray area, but sparking it up is where society draws the line. It sounds like a rule written for a cartoon villain, proving that at some point, a dog smoking a stogie was a genuine municipal crisis. 16. California has a traffic law that sounds futuristic but is actually ancient. It is illegal for a vehicle without a driver to exceed 60 miles per hour. This wasn't written for Teslas, it was written for gravity. Basically, if your car rolls down a hill and hits 61, the car itself is breaking the law. It is a fascinating attempt to hold physics accountable, effectively telling a runaway hunk of metal, you can crash, just don't be in a hurry about it. 17. Ohio is one of the few places where the deer get a federally mandated day off. It is generally illegal to hunt on Sundays, a lingering blue law that prioritizes a day of rest over filling the freezer. While most states have moved on, Ohio keeps this tradition alive, creating a weird dynamic where the woods are legally a safe zone once a week. It creates a bizarre schedule where nature is violent for 6 days, but peaceful on the 7th by court order. 18. Mississippi takes censorship to a meta level. It isn't just illegal to practice polygamy, it is technically illegal to explain to someone what polygamy is. The law bans teaching the very concept to others. It is a relic of moral panic, trying to kill an idea by making the definition of the word contraband. In the age of Google, it is completely unenforceable, but it stands as a hilarious attempt to pretend that if you don't talk about multiple wives, they don't exist. 19. If you are in New Hampshire, keep your hands off the seaweed after dark. It is explicitly illegal to harvest seaweed from the beach at night. This dates back to when seaweed was valuable fertilizer, and farmers feared kelp rustlers stealing their haul under the moonlight. It conjures up an incredible image of criminals in black masks tiptoeing through the sand to steal wet vegetation. It is a serious law for a crime that sounds like a plot point in a SpongeBob episode. 20. Maine has decided that the holiday spirit has a strict expiration date. Legally, you must remove your Christmas decorations by January 14th, or you face a fine. It turns the post-holiday cleanup into a race against the law. We all know that one neighbor who leaves Santa up until Easter, and Maine simply said, "Not on our watch." It is arguably the most relatable law on this list, legislating against procrastination to keep the streets from looking like a forgotten Hallmark movie set. 21. Gainesville, Georgia, takes its poultry pride to a fanatical level. A 1961 ordinance explicitly makes it illegal to eat fried chicken with a fork. What started as a publicity stunt to brand the town as the poultry capital of the world is actually enforced, mostly for laughs, but still. A 91-year-old tourist was once pulled over and arrested by the police chief for using utensils. It is the only law in America that mandates you must get your hands greasy to be a model citizen. 22. Washington State has a strangely specific concern about vending machines. It is illegal to attach a vending machine to a utility pole without prior consent. This law raises so many questions. Who was hauling a 500-pound snack dispenser up a telephone pole? And more importantly, who was climbing up there to buy a Snickers? It suggests a rogue vending vigilante was once loose in the Pacific Northwest, determined to provide high-altitude refreshments to electricians and squirrels alike. 23. Washington, D.C. still has a law on the books that is pure 19th-century drama. It is illegal to post a public notice calling someone a coward for refusing a duel. While dueling itself is obviously illegal, this specific statute bans the Victorian equivalent of a diss track. It is a magnificent ghost of a time when honor was so fragile that the government had to step in and regulate the trash talk. Basically, you can't legally bully someone for not wanting to be shot at. 24. Nevada has a law that reminds us how dangerously stupid we used to be. It is illegal to use an X-ray device to determine shoe size. Back in the 1950s, shoe stores had fluoroscopes that blasted kids' feet with radiation just to see if their toes fit. It was a gimmick that prioritized a cool glowing image over not getting cancer. Nevada's ban is a lingering reminder of the era when we casually irradiated children just to sell them a pair of loafers. 25. South Carolina draws a hard line when it comes to equine hygiene. It is strictly illegal to keep a horse in a bathtub. Unlike other weird laws tied to specific floods or emergencies, this one seems to just be a general prohibition. It implies that at some point, enough people were trying to give their Clydesdales a spa day that the state legislature had to intervene. If you want to pamper your pony, you'll have to do it in the stable, not the master bath. 26. Billings, Montana, is a tough place for teenage rock stars. A city ordinance makes it illegal for a band to perform in a venue serving alcohol if any member is underage. It doesn't matter if the kid is just playing the drums and drinking tap water. If they are under 21, the whole gig is illegal. It is a well-meaning law that accidentally functions as a dream crusher, ensuring that the next Nirvana can't get their start until everyone has checked their ID at the door. 27. Hawaii had to pass a law that sounds like it was written by an exasperated parent. It is illegal to place coins in your ears. Apparently, when new state quarters were released in 2000, kids started using their heads as piggy banks, leading to a rash of stuck currency. The state decided the only way to stop this was to make it a crime. 28. Kansas has a law that is pure, petty spite. It is illegal to serve wine in teacups. This dates back to Prohibition, when sneaky restaurants would pour booze into china cups to fool the police. Once alcohol became legal again, the state kept the ban just to prove a point. It's the legislative equivalent of a parent saying, "I know what you did and you aren't doing it again." If you want wine in Kansas, you better put it in a glass like an adult. 29. Minnesota has a strict border policy when it comes to poultry fashion. It is illegal to cross state lines with a duck on your head. This wasn't about animal cruelty. It was apparently about stopping a bizarre local trend from becoming an export. Someone, somewhere, made duck hatting popular enough that the government had to build a legal wall around it. Minnesota essentially decided that their specific brand of weirdness had to stay contained within their own borders for the safety of the nation. 30. Utah has a law that sounds like it was written by a cow. It is technically illegal not to drink milk. This comes from old emergency preparedness statutes that required businesses to have milk available, effectively making it a mandatory staple. While the milk police won't kick down your door for drinking a Coke, the law stands as a testament to the dairy lobby's power. In Utah, calcium isn't just a dietary recommendation. It is a state-sponsored obligation to your bones. 31. Palo Alto, California, tries to impose Christian morals on nature itself. It is illegal for animals to mate publicly within 1,500 feet of a school, church, or business. This is a real ordinance. How exactly the city expects to inform the local squirrels and pigeons of this zoning restriction remains a mystery. It is a hilarious example of humans trying to legislate the animal kingdom, essentially demanding that birds and bees get a room before they do what birds and bees do. 32. In Florida, bureaucracy comes for the skaters. In certain cities, it is illegal to skateboard without a valid license. You literally have to register your board and get a tag, just like a car. It was an attempt to curb reckless skating, but it ended up turning the most rebellious sport on Earth into a DMV nightmare. Imagine Tony Hawk standing in line for 3 hours just to renew the registration on his deck. It kills the vibe in the most government way possible. 33. South Dakota has a law that protects the cheese at all costs. It is explicitly illegal to fall asleep in a cheese factory. This might be a safety rule, but it conjures up a hilarious image of a worker dozing off and waking up encased in a wheel of cheddar like a dairy-based Han Solo. It implies that the cheese factories of South Dakota are so cozy and soporific that the state had to threaten jail time just to keep people awake on the job. 34. Oregon has decided that the highway is not your personal gym. A specific statute makes it illegal to test your physical endurance while driving on a public road. This phrasing is wonderfully dramatic. It suggests that Interstate 5 was once plagued by daredevils seeing how long they could drive without blinking, or maybe doing pull-ups on the steering wheel at 70 miles an hour. It is a law against the specific kind of hubris that turns a commute into an extreme sport. 35. In 1923, Illinois got patriotic in the weirdest way possible. The state legislature declared it illegal to speak English. Instead, the official language was designated as American. It was a petty, xenophobic middle finger to Great Britain, trying to legally separate the U.S. dialect from the King's English. For a brief, glorious window of time, speaking proper British English in Chicago was technically a crime, proving that Illinois was the original inventor of "We speak American here." 36. Wyoming has a law that makes nature photography a bureaucratic nightmare. It is illegal to take a picture of a rabbit from January to April without an official permit. While likely an oddly worded attempt to stop unlicensed hunting during breeding season, the literal interpretation is hilarious. It implies that rabbits have a right to privacy for 4 months a year. If you snap a photo of Bugs Bunny in March, you are technically running a paparazzi operation without a license. 37. Denver, Colorado, has criminalized neighborly kindness. It is explicitly unlawful to lend your vacuum cleaner to your next-door neighbor. This isn't about noise complaints. It is a direct prohibition on sharing cleaning appliances. The origins are a mystery, but it effectively turns a Hoover into contraband. If your neighbor asks to borrow a vacuum for a spill, you have to tell them, "I'd love to help, but I'm not going to prison for your dirty carpet." 38. Texas takes property rights very personally, especially when it comes to livestock. It is illegal to milk another person's cow. This is obviously a theft law, but the phrasing is fantastic. It isn't just about stealing the milk, it is about the violation of the act itself. It protects the cow from unauthorized touching. It suggests that in Texas, you don't mess with a man's wife, his truck, or his heifer's udders. It's all about boundaries. 39. Oklahoma has identified a very specific threat to road safety: superheroes. It is explicitly illegal to read a comic book while operating a motor vehicle. Not a novel, not a map, but specifically a comic book. This law singles out Spider-Man and Batman as unique distractions. You have to wonder if there was a rash of accidents caused by drivers too engrossed in a particularly shocking plot twist in X-Men. In Oklahoma, Stan Lee is considered a public safety hazard. 40. North Carolina has set a strict limit on how much fun grandma can have. It is illegal for a bingo game to last longer than 5 hours. This implies the existence of underground, high-endurance bingo marathons that were destroying society. The state had to step in and say, "Folks, there is a limit." Imagine the police raiding a church basement because the game went into hour 6, confiscating daubers and arresting seniors for illicit gambling endurance. 41. Arkansas demands respect, literally. A specific state statute from 1881 makes it illegal to mispronounce the state's name. It must be Arkansas, with a silent S. This wasn't just pride, it was passed to settle a feud between two senators who couldn't agree on how to say it. Arkansas is one of the few places on Earth where a simple phonetic slip-up is technically a violation of the law. If you say Arkansas, you aren't just wrong, you're a criminal. 42. Carmel, New York, is apparently the fashion police capital of the world. An old ordinance makes it illegal for a man to go out in public wearing a jacket and pants that do not match. Who enforces this? Is there a SWAT team for clashing patterns? It is a law that suggests the town was once run by a very aggressive tailor who believed that bad fashion was a threat to the public order. Check your mirror or check your rights. 43. In New Jersey, good manners are mandatory. In several towns, it is illegal to slurp your soup. This falls under broader public decency ordinances, effectively legislating table etiquette. While you probably won't get tackled by a SWAT team for enjoying your clam chowder too loudly, the rule is there. It represents a delightful level of municipal pettiness, where the town council decided that the sound of liquid intake was a scourge that had to be eradicated by the force of law. 44. Delaware has a law that sounds like witchcraft, but is likely consumer protection. It is illegal to sell the hair of a dog. This obscure statute was probably meant to stop scammers from selling random fur as high-quality wool or something similar. However, the mental image is incredible. It paints a picture of a shady black market where trench-coated dealers are whispering, "Hey buddy, you looking for some premium golden retriever fluff?" It's a very specific ban on a very weird commodity. 45. Massachusetts puts a hard cap on grief eating. An old blue law makes it illegal for mourners at a wake to eat more than 3 sandwiches. The intent was to stop somber gatherings from turning into gluttonous free-for-alls. But the specificity is hilarious. Imagine being the host, having to cut off a bereaved cousin saying, "I know you're sad, Gary, but that's your 4th ham and Swiss. Put it down before I have to call the cops." 46. North Dakota wants to micromanage your bedtime. It is technically against the law to fall asleep with your shoes on. Was this written by a bitter cobbler tired of repairing scuffed sheets? Or did a lawmaker just hate the idea of dirt in the bed? Either way, it is a bizarre level of government intrusion into your nightly routine. If you pass out after a long day without kicking off your sneakers, you are technically a fugitive from justice in the Peace Garden state. 47. Louisiana has a law for the world's most pathetic bank robber. It is a specific crime to rob a bank and then shoot the teller with a water pistol. The law carries a severe penalty because it treats the water gun as a tool of intimidation, mimicking a real weapon. However, it reads like a rule written to stop a Looney Tunes villain. It effectively says, you can rob the bank but leave the Super Soaker at home. 48. Pennsylvania has zero tolerance for your shower concerts. An old ordinance prohibits singing in the bathtub. Legend has it that a particularly loud soprano once shook the pipes so badly that neighbors complained, forcing the legislature to act. It is the ultimate buzzkill law. If you're belting out Bohemian Rhapsody while scrubbing up, you aren't just annoying your roommates, you are violating the penal code. Keep it down or finish your solo in a holding cell. We just proved the legal system is a hallucinations. Now, I want a confession. Scroll down and tell me exactly which one of these dumb laws you have broken personally. Don't lie. If you want to stay out of jail and get smarter every week, hit like and subscribe immediately.